Hey folks, Tony Lockhart here, and I'm working on some Hakeme cups. It's basically, you throw a dark clay and then you take a light clay, or you do the opposite, and you put it on the exterior. So in this clip I'm going to throw a couple of different pots, and then what I'll do is I'll apply this clay to the surface. I'm also going to trim a couple of these as well to get them ready to go for bisque firing. Alright, so I've got a little bit of black clay left over. What I need to do is wedge this so it'll be ready to throw. Okay, so before I get started, what I wanted to do is to show how I've got some light clay inside here. I'm going to use this, and with a paintbrush, I'm going to apply it to the outside of a cup or a bowl that I throw out of this clay. I've got 2 extra pieces left, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to decide if I'm going to make a bowl or a cup, or maybe just 2 cups. Figure it out in a minute. Let's start by centering off the clay. Yeah, I think I'm going to make a tall cup, like a utility cup, something for pencils. Now I'll slow the wheel down just a bit. Try to get maybe 1 more pull out of this, maybe 2. I'm gonna press down the lip just a bit, kind of even out the top just a bit. Take whatever slip I have left over in my hands, try to reapply it. I'm gonna slow the wheel down just a little bit more. This little throwing stick, our little wooden rib. Kind of dry on the inside. I'm going to put a little bit of water up and down the pot. I want to shape it up just a bit. I'm going to make it a little bit wider. slow this wheel down just a little bit more. So it's really, really thin. So you got a bit of a wobble to it, and it's going to shrink and warp considerably because I have a lot of water. And I've got it's off center with the way I've thrown it. So I need to slow the wheel down to make sure I don't ruin it, because it can still retain its form nicely. Okay, it's pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is just kind of clean it up just a bit. So it's a sponge with a stick. What I'll do is go and collect any water that's down at the bottom. It's my last chance to add a little bit of compression to it. I'm going to clean the base of the board, this little bat that it's sitting on. I'll clean that up just a bit so it's dry. And then next what I'm going to do is take a little piece of leather, and then I'm going to round off that corner where the lip is. I'm not going to drink from this cup, I'm going to use it to store pens and pencils and stuff. Okay. And then now what I'll need to do is to take a lighter clay and I'll apply that to the surface. Before I do that, I was just going to show this little ginkgo leaf that my daughter gave me a while ago. It's one of my favorite plants and leaves and things like that. So what you could do is to take something like this and put it onto the surface of the cup, and then you brush a different clay on top of it. But this one's a little beat up, so I'm gonna let this one kind of disintegrate by itself. Okay. So here's another look at that clay that I've got. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take this and spin the wheel. I'm going to very gently brush this on because I want a fairly even coat on the outside. So load up the brush with some of that, and then I think I got it. I'm just going to apply it to the surface. You can apply more. You can apply less or more depending on what you want. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to wait for the dark section to come back so I get a little bit even coverage. Going to be careful to not push in too hard, because then what will happen is you'll deform the cup. Give it a little bit more speed. Nice gradation. Okay. Should be good. I'm gonna rinse off this brush. Put this off to the side. And then what I'll do is I'll clean off the bottom with one of these tools. I'll just wire this off. And here we go. Let's go ahead and make one more. that slip left over, and what I'm going to do is just brush it on the inside of the bowl. A little bit of speed to that wheel. Wire this off. Oh, that's beautiful. All right, so we're gonna take this one right here and we're gonna trim it up. See the bottom, there's a couple of irregularities and it's not that clean, and maybe try to put a little foot ring inside of it. So, first things first, we'll center it in this Giffen grip. I like to start by peeling off one layer at the top. And after that I can press downwards. Now it's definitely off center, it's got a wobble. So I could do two things. I could even it out or I could just live with it, and that's what I'm gonna do. Kind of notice every revolution, the cup gets closer to my finger. That's the side that's out of round. We got a little bit of a centered circle right here, but it still has a bit of a wobble. I'm gonna put a smaller circle on the inside, and I'll have a thick and a thin foot ring. That's actually, doesn't bother me at all. Okay. Pretty good. Finish off and put a little bit of this light clay at the bottom. And what I'll do is I'll scratch my name to the bottom. Alright, so in this last part of the clip, what we're going to do is just kind of clean up some of the spots. So if we get a real close-up, we can kind of see, and I'm looking for irregularities. I notice there's a little spot right here of clay, so I'm just going to take a metal rib and kind of carve that off. The spots right here at the top, I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but it's not really as smooth as I'd like it to be. There's a considerable buildup of clay right here. So what I'll do is very, very carefully try to chisel some of that off to make it a little bit smoother. If you recall, I was talking about putting a gingko leaf over the cover, or I was putting a gingko leaf onto the actual surface of the clay, and then after doing that I brushed on a bunch of this white clay. So it's actual clay that I'm scraping away. But I don't want the impression to be too noticeable. It's definitely a height difference. This brown part of the clay is definitely higher or lower than the white part. Alright, looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm just gonna take one more quick look, see if there's anything that I need to address. Looks good. All right, let me do one of these other ones. Here's a little tiny cup. This one had a lot of chunks in the white slip, so I've got a lot more cleanup to do. So I'm just gonna go in and just scrape those pieces off. And so far so good. Okay, here's the last one that I'm going to clean up, but I'm actually going to scratch a pattern into it. So before I do that, I just want to go and get rid of any of these big chunks. Get rid of those pieces. Now what I can do is to go back in and scratch away some of these details. So if I kind of remove or scratch away some of these, some of the surface, it leaves a black mark, and that's because there's a black clay underneath. So I'm just going to make kind of a pattern. I'm going to scratch away some of the material. What happens is when you take this clay and you fire it, the browner part of the clay looks almost black. I believe this is the Laguna B3 Brown. Then I have a little bit of Bmix, which is a creamy colored clay. So it's going to contrast nicely. So I'm just going to make a series of vertical marks all the way across or around the cup. and that'll change the value of the cup. I'm gonna make a couple more lines all the way across. Let's speed up the camera. Thanks for taking a look.